Thank you for watching another episode of Magic Morons. I am one of your hosts, Alper Markov.
I am Allison, the annoying Brazilian. We are also joined by amazing. You see, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Oh, you're too cute.
I got you. See, today they're going to be hanging out with some amazing community people like myself and an artist that we have in our presence now, which is pretty awesome.
Brand spanking new. Greg debuted yesterday. And last but not least, we have Brazil's powerhouse Magic the Gathering content creator.
Apparently, I got promoted to co-host as well.
Yes, you are co-host.
I'll just roll with it.
But I mean, I just look. If I can't brag a little bit about the star power, then what's life? But who you know? Anyway, today we'll be talking a bit about Dominaria United, the state of the game, just general Magic stuff, and a little bit about Unfinity, which, like I said, Greg debuted in yesterday. But has anybody what's everybody's general thoughts of the gameplay of it so far? What is the take? Is it good? Is it bad? Do we enjoy it?
You're talking about Dominaria?
Mm-hmm.
I think overall I like a lot of the concepts that are there. I like the options that are available. I just think it's a tough time because in conjunction with other things that have existed the last 4 or 5 sets, you have a lot of mono black running around right now, especially in standard. That's kind of annoying people a little bit, though. I do honestly believe that as the season goes on, we're going to find out that mono black is probably not the best deck, but I think it's the easiest to assemble and play right now. So you're seeing a whole lot of it out there.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I assembled a mono black one. I did. What about you? What about you, Elba? Have you been?
I'm really loving the sealed environment for Dominaria. I'm having a blast in sealed. I'm glad we went back to the old, well, not standard the format, but the old standard of just a few cards affecting eternal formats. I'm happy with the set. I'm happy with the cards. I think it's much better by any metrics than the original Dominaria from 2018. And I'm having a blast with Karn Silex in Legacy. Oh my god, I love that card.
But you hated the Dominaria, didn't you? The 2018.
Absolutely hated Dominaria. Dominaria made me stop reading the lore.
Wow.
We'll get to that.
I don't know why. I still don't understand why. I guess you can't find it as readily. But I guess the lore. How do we feel about the lore? Maybe that's a good segue, only because I did enjoy it.
It improved a lot. It's miles better. It's much better than the Dominaria. I mean, I mean no disrespect to the original author, because I know she was kind of tricked into doing a bad work, but it just feels like somebody proofread this time before publishing.
No.
I mean, DeQuan, when did you start officially playing? How old were you? You were young, right?
That would have been around the spring of 94. It was late 94, early 95, something like that, whenever I started playing. It was literally just on a field trip. Just picked up some Magic cards, had no idea what they were. Somebody explained it to me that it was it's kind of like D&D, but with cards, where I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And then got home and realized I had to find somebody else who had a deck of cards and I couldn't play with anybody. And then coincidentally, it was 2 weeks later, I think, a friend of mine comes back from visiting his brother and he's like, hey, my brother showed me this game, and he's describing it, and he's like, yeah, it has mana. I was like, is it called Magic? He's like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, oh, because I have some at home. And then we played for, I don't know, the next 4 days with 2 junky starter decks. But yeah, that was it for me. So that was back when I was probably 15.
Well, and that's around when you started, right, Elba? You're around that time, right? 94?
Yep. Kind of similar story. Someone got a box of what must have been starters. Late 93, early 94, something like that. And we all lived in the building, apartment building. So, well, I got this new game and there are other kids around here. Hey guys, let's play this. And we spent a couple years playing with that box until we could get our hands on new cards.
I mean, do you ever think about how much money those cards are probably worth now that you were playing with back in 1994? I'd imagine there was some cards in it that were just
I don't think they're worth very
really.
much at all, considering
Huh.
that sleeves weren't invented until 97 or so. So yeah, and we were kids and we were playing literally on paved floors, sidewalks and such. So yeah, I'm pretty confident they're not worth very much.
Is that
Yeah, the
true?
other thing too is, oh yeah. Like there were people. I know a guy. He marked up like one of the dual lands because he needed more swamps. So like I remember a guy not trading. Or actually, this is a true story. I think I told this story on my show before, but like one of my friends comes over to me one day because the guy wants to trade with him. He says, "Hey, this dude wants to trade me this Mox Emerald for my Shivan Dragon." And I'm like, "Well, what's a Mox Emerald doing?" He's like, "It makes green mana." I'm like, "But we have forest, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Then why would you give up the dragon? The dragon's worth like $5 more than that." He's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then, like 6 months later, he's like, "Hey, remember that emerald that guy wanted to trade me?" Like, yeah, it's worth like $15 more than a Shivan Dragon now. I'm like, "Oh, that's something." Like,
Oh
And it
wow.
snowballed a little bit. It's
Yeah,
weird
exactly.
to imagine. It's weird to imagine like nowadays with the weight that Magic is like. It was literally just a game that kids played, and kids were. It was.
It's.
It was
I
And
heard
the other
that.
thing to remember
When I
too
was
is like a lot of people were playing incorrectly, right? So wherever you learned or whatever like lineage you learned from, everybody in that tree played the same way. And sometimes some cards had more or less value because you weren't playing correctly, right? So
yeah.
you travel to the next town over and go play with some people and they have like weird what you think are just like house rules, but they think those
Yeah.
are the actual rules.
It's
So like everything gets turned upside down. So yeah, Magic
It's-
was way different in the beginning.
Is
And
that
there were-
how?
it's
Global market.
the equivalent. Go carry on, Greg. Sorry.
Sorry, there weren't a global market for cards.
No, what happened in the
That's
beginning is the only way to really trade or whatever outside of your local group is you had to go to the rec.games boards, because there weren't really big message forums for Magic. There definitely wasn't like a TCG player or anything else. Like it was a big deal when the dojo started because that was like the first time people were posting even tournament reports. You could see like what was happening elsewhere, and that was like huge. Like that literally
Wasn't-
changed everything.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
the first deck list and the first prices like the market things on like magazines or something that
Yeah.
you just get? I recall like Elba telling a story about that in one of his videos, if I'm not mistaken.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but in the early 90s, heck, my running record for a bad trade is when I got a starter pack of, it was either beta or revised, I don't remember which. And keep in mind, this was northeastern Brazil. To this day, it is still somewhat common for sets to be delayed 1 or 2 weeks to get there.
Mhm.
So there was no the magic there was whatever people had. So I got my very first starter box, and I'm mad because I got one less rare. It came with, instead of 3 rares, 2 rares.
Oh, that happened in starters.
And then somebody, no, Elba, this here land, that's a rare. This filthy land, that's a mountain and an island at the same time. What a piece of junk. I'd rather have 10 islands and 10 mountains, and then at least I could build a new deck. Very quickly, somebody came up, I'll trade that for 20 lands with you. And that's my, and you know what? I still don't think it was that bad a trade. Because you couldn't get basic lands. There were no magic stores. There were no boosters.
That's so crazy.
I can tell you what's even crazier is like we take for granted that hell, not even just that you can find the rules from somebody, but you can go to even on like Scryfall and the rules are posted with the card, right? When you look it up.
Yeah.
Back then that wasn't a thing. So you literally, that came with this little bitty rule book in the starter deck. There's little like 2.5 by like 3-inch rule book. And you would call the number to Renton, Washington, like long distance or whatever. And you had to call during business hours to get like your rules questions answered. So I've literally had Magic games paused. We would, while we were at school, call long distance from the payphone, get the rules answer, and then we would finish the game the next night. Like that's literally what happened. And Wizards used to have a team of people that was there just to answer rules calls. because you didn't have
Nintendo also had something like that, right? About
Wow.
how
Yeah.
to beat the game or
Yeah,
something.
Nintendo had that.
you didn't
as
have a
well.
rule
Man.
system. You know, people forget the internet was still really new, because even in the US, outside of like AOL or America Online or whatever, a lot of people didn't really have internet access for that. And
Yeah.
even then, all these websites weren't developed. So it was very different.
Remember how much of a discussion there was because of Black Knight and balance, because the original rules for protection from white said white cards doesn't affect this. Way back when, Black Knight wouldn't be destroyed by Wrath of God.
Whoa.
So when balance says the person with the fewest most creatures sacrificed until they have the same number as the person with the fewest. So does that mean I can't sacrifice Black Knight, or does that mean I don't count Black Knight at all, and then I sacrifice my other creatures? But if I don't count Black Knight, when I sacrifice my other creatures, I'm going to have more creatures than the person with the fewest. So that was my oldest unsolvable, quote unquote, unsolvable rules question, because we could not. if I called Renton on a phone,
Now, see, that's crazy.
my papa would need a new belt.
Yeah, that would be like a $12 phone call.
Oh my God. I remember leaving America Online.
Imagine from Brazil.
I left America Online overnight in high school accidentally, and my parents got the bill. It was like $600 for that one night. There was a talking to that night. But you know, this is interesting too, because DeQuan, you became a judge. Like, you became a super level judge, like the
Level 5.
Yeah.
No, I was a tournament organizer, but I was never a judge.
Oh, you weren't. Okay.
Actually, technically, I guess I was a level 1 judge at one point, but that's really it. I just enough so I could help, you know, tag in and run the events or whatever. I always just spent more time just working with other people that were judges, or hiring people that were for events, so I could focus on one thing and then they could be the people on the floor running the event.
What was the hold on, Maggie's starting to do the happy dance. I hope she doesn't well, I'll cut this part. I apologize. What's like the most challenging part about organizing those events? I mean, with judges, like, how do you deal with those personalities? I mean, is there friction? How do you navigate that kind of thing?
No, I mean, you treat it like you do anything else. Like, whether I'm putting together, like I said, an after school program and some group for that, whether I'm doing a charity event, whether I'm running an event, like, you're still just the leader, you know, just like you do when you run your business. Like, they're employees for a day, effectively. I know people hate calling them that, but whatever, they're volunteers, whatever, however you want to describe it, but they're working for you for the day. And just treat it professionally. You set down the rules of, here's how we're going to run stuff. This is where stuff's going to be reported. Here's where stuff drops off. If there's an issue, we'll discuss it over here. Here's how we handle things. And as long as you have your ducks in a row, I've never really had an issue with judges, honestly. It's just, as long as you are prepared and professional, they understand. And if there's a thing that they understand better, or, hey, we tried this at this event, or we did this at this Grand Prix that worked well, cool, hear them out. And if it makes sense and you're able to try it, let's try it today and see if it works. You know, and yeah, we ended up having a good group of judges that I had for pretty much any event. Like, we had to the point where there were judges that would prioritize working our events over working somebody else if they both came up on the same day or the same weekend.
Now, with like, I realize now that the theme is sort of going to like talking to the longtime players of Magic, but it's cool to have you guys like going off of each other with your like stories. I guess then my question would be, what has the game gotten right over the years? Like, I know we talk a lot about the negative aspects of what's happening with Magic, but what's something that you've seen in the evolution of the game that has, like, to you been an unequivocal success?
The thing I would say is that, as much as we take for granted with Magic, one of the things we don't really discuss is understanding like the longevity of it and how well it's maintained its popularity, considering that it's its own IP, right? The only other things we have as gamer nerds outside of, let's say, Magic and D&D, that are both owned by Wizards of the Coast, everything else for the most part has some huge, you know, it's Pokemon, it's Nintendo stuff, it's Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever, right? These things that have huge other brands attached to them. And Magic's managed to do that just on its own. Like, and we're just now getting to the era where they're starting to actually market Magic, where you can get Magic t-shirts at Kohl's now or whatever, or we now have, like, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen like 3 or 4 different Magic apps that aren't just playing Magic. Right now, it's using Magic for a match 3 game or some other variant other than just like, I have a card, I make mana, I cast a thing. Right. That's been the biggest thing, is seeing it slowly evolve. Now, they could have been faster about it for sure. And I think that's one of the benefits from when Chris Cox came on to Wizards, is he kind of opened up the door of saying, okay, why aren't we doing these other things? And started moving that down the road. But now we see like companies making Magic statues and, all kinds of other stuff that we never really had or if we did, it was just like drops in the bucket years ago. So I would say that's been the biggest thing, is they've found ways to stay culturally relevant, despite not being this huge brand that everybody kind of just knows in their households.
If I may do a small add on that, maybe, especially from Wizards of the Coast, right? Maybe I'd say even D&D and other, like Yu-Gi-Oh! And other card games, Pokemon, I'd say even they like have witnessed this like slow fall of interest, at least at some period of time, right? D&D was like when Pathfinder came out. Yu-Gi-Oh! That's a good question, but I guess I stopped caring about it after I turned 6 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a kids game. Children.
Like when you guys were talking about the rulings, like everybody was like, yeah, I don't know what it does, I don't know what effects is, but like my dragon is bigger, so I win. That was Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think I don't know exactly, but I recall, at least as long as I am alive, Magic kind of always being there in some form, way, or shape, right? It's not like I'm going to compare that to D&D just because, like, when Pathfinder came out, like, D&D was like, well, nobody likes 4th edition, and Pathfinder came out, no more D&D, yes, and then 5th edition came out, but
it was in the background.
I imagine like the Magic being like this constant, at least, right? Not the peak, but at least a constant. Am I wrong to say that? I don't know.
I started playing in 2019 myself, and I always noticed it. It was in the peripheral. Like you would walk by a place and you'd walk by in Target and you'd see it there, and you're like,
that's my point of view. Right. Yeah.
Like that's again, that must be what DeQuan was talking about with the actual marketing. Now it's like.
But even beyond that, I think it's, for as much as people want to say that, like, oh, Wizards is doing this and wanting to get rid of game stores and this, which, by the way, I bring this up a couple times a year, but like, if Wizards wanted game stores dead, they would have let them die during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
but they went out of their way and literally printed millions of dollars worth of product and sent it to retailers for free. They created a bunch of promos to encourage people to shop with their local retailers or whatever, right? They didn't have to do any of that, because I was telling people, if you wanted them to just die off, you wouldn't have given away. If you put all those efforts together, it's probably $4 or $5 million worth of stuff. They would have just kept that on the bottom line. You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense.
Would be, the pandemic would be like the perfect opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's conspiracy theory just to say that Wizards actually want game stores dead.
Yeah.
I can tell you from experience, having been at Wizards, even prior to the pandemic, there is a multiple $1 million budget that goes into just getting stuff to retail stores.
Yeah. I don't think no one actually believes that, just as no one actually believes that they want to end competitive play. But that the way they've been treating these, but it hasn't been good. I would like to counter a point you made, though, DeQuan. I do not agree very much with the rapid. I don't want to say marketing, but I think on the last 5 years or so, Wizards might have jumped to they've been too thirsty at the pot with what they can market, what they can sell, what they can publish. When Alper asked about what the company did right for the past 30 years, I was gonna say that, in my opinion, what has kept the game afloat has always been the collectible aspect. The game was born as the first collectible game, and ever since ever, it had the mythic Black Lotus and the Mox and the Time Walks, and there's always the chase card that everyone wants and it's famous, and Heck, I remember when back in '95, and people was like, "Oh, that's the game that has a $300 card. I'm gonna open a couple of boosters. Maybe I'll get it." No one even knew Black Lotus wasn't in fourth edition, and keeping by carefully maintaining this aura of Magic being that very complex game that people like to collect, and the cards are worth a ton of money. I believe that maintained the game in the public eye. Even people who never played the game, they knew Magic as that card game with very expensive cards, very complex game with very, very expensive cards. And I get the feeling that in the past couple of years, I don't mean for this to sound as gatekeeping. I'm fine with the game complexity itself being toned down, but I've been getting this impression that Wizards has been cashing out on the good faith they've built throughout the years.
There could be an element to that. I feel like they did fire on all cylinders for a little bit. I think maybe like the secret layers, they kind of revved the engines a little too much on that.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
That was tough because it was the point where you couldn't keep track of what was happening. It is a bummer that the collector boosters are not as exciting as the Throne of Eldraines were when they first came out. My theory, honestly, is I feel like Throne of Eldraine really made things like different. That was such a powerful set. I mean, I think the game's still reeling from that. I mean,
on some levels.
Yeah, it's insanely powerful.
Thinking about it, what Elba just said, that was literally how I perceived Magic before playing it. It was literally like the card game with the $100 card that you could get in, and it was literally like this mythical hour. Like, it's too complex, you can't get it. I have no idea why I got convinced to play it in the first place, but here we are.
I had somebody convince me it was worth it.
But there is a GDC talk from Mark Rosewater, I think on GDC, I think it was in 2015 or something, before the masterpieces got released, right? I may say maybe the masterpieces or like that sort of stuff was like the first premium stuff that Wizards got. Let's say it might be like the tip of the iceberg that I got into this like products collectivities over marketing.
They were beta. There was like beta collector booster sort of.
On that talk, right? He mentioned, I think it's like when Magic was being like 25 years old, if I'm not mistaken, right? And he was like, okay, 25 lessons, and he mentions the good stuff and the bad stuff. And I think one of the the main topics was customization, right? Now, mind you, this is 2015, and Mark Rosewater mentions like, because the planes and the cards have like different art from different sets, mostly the planes, that what he mentioned, right? People could customize their decks in the way that they wished, right? And that was when like the border was limiting, right? It was like that frame of reference from the 2008 and all that. And next year, masterpieces showed up. Next year, we got new things. Then like after the masterpieces blew up, right? And like were a big thing. We got the invocations, and that's where we kind of all started, right? And
that is
now, after 2016, I started playing like 2017 or something. That was after that, and after that, that's what it meant. That's just going on Elba's points. Like then we start seeing books and all of that. I want to see what DeQuan has to say, but please, Elba, carry on.
I was going to say, I don't think it started with masterpieces. I think it started with From the Vault.
Yeah, that was even before. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and I have to say, I enjoy From the Vault. I enjoyed masterpieces. I enjoyed Judge promos. I even like the concept of secret layers, even though for the longest time we couldn't get them down here. But as Alper said, it got to a point where I'm like, I don't even know. It's just too much artwork, too many versions. I hate sounding like old men yelling at clouds, but 10 years ago I could see a blurry picture from a game and tell you what everyone was playing just by the corners of the cards in their hands. Nowadays I might be playing a game and looking at the cards and like, what card is that?
I think what they've learned, I think what they've course corrected, and this brings us to Greg, is that they've now. I love the fact that they're focusing on the artists, like making the secret layer a celebration about the individual artist. Like that's knocking it out of the park in every sense of the word. And just to segue, so real quick, Greg, I want to know your story about how you got into becoming a Magic the Gathering artist because how did it happen? How did you discover that Wizards of the Coast was interested in your artwork? What was that day like? Walk us through it.
Okay. I can't really remember the exact day, but I
You must
still
remember
remember.
it.
Yeah, I remember that I got email from Dominaria asking if I was willing to make some art for Magic, and probably due my imposter syndrome, my first reaction was to check if that is some kind of
Or a
spam
scam.
yeah, or something like that. I couldn't really believe it could be possible, but it was, and
That's so
I agree
cool.
actually. And then it was like straightforward process. Like working with wizards is absolutely great experience. I haven't have a single moment that I felt like it was too hard or too big on me. Like art directors are all supportive and they always know what they want actually, and well, that makes this company like excelling in this part, in art part, that it's they are, for me especially, this is they are setting standards for how artists should be approached and treated. And well, I hope I will have opportunity to work with them like in future.
I'd imagine you will, and
So
I
do
think
I.
and I think that that's the if I were to pick something that Wizards has gotten right, the art they have, and when I talk about and not just the fact that they're embracing all these new artists from all different parts of the world, from all different cultures, which is long overdue, but even the fact that they're understanding that bringing back the original artists for the nostalgia factor, because a long time they were ignoring the fact that people wanted to see the return of the people that they loved into the game, and I found that very sad. I think for a while they were sort of trying to keep to an IP sort of idea, but then eventually they released from that, and the secret layers have allowed them to do that too. They can go crazy with whatever they want, and you look like you're
think on the front of old artists, I don't know how much I can say either. This isn't even from just like Wizards, but just from some artists I know. But there were some legal issues on how, like, who had the rights or how much they should be paid, what percentages,
yes.
That's the reason you saw a lot of cards get reprinted that had to get new art and
Well,
whatever.
yes,
and
yes.
Others kept the same old art.
Yes.
And I think over time, some of those things have slowly gotten resolved between people, and now they're kind of reaching, going back across those bridges and saying like, hey, how about we do this for you, and you do a couple pieces for us or whatever.
It's true, and I do. I mean, I interview a lot of artists from my channel, and there was that was some of the cases, but in some of the cases where it was just like cleaning house, and sort of like it was that these were not they were not as technically skilled as like say a Donato Giancola, so it was out the door, and persona non grata. And what is amazing about all of the Magic artists is that they all behind the scenes continued to work at their craft, and now when we're seeing them reappear in these new sets, their work is just as quality as the people that are being found today. But then there's also like Carly Mazur. Like I love like her artwork. I love the fact that when her artwork came out, people went nuts over it. I mean, like that to me is a sign of like such huge success. I mean, I loved it, and then people were like, oh, they hated it. They said, I mean,
But
This
I
is
think
not
your
a magic
reaction
card.
is exactly
know, right?
right. You know, when we're talking about there being all these different versions and different artworks or whatever, that kind of happens when you are going and getting different artists and reaching out to different communities and whatever. Because there's a lot of these artists, especially over the last probably 2 years, several that I wouldn't even have known about, wouldn't have looked up anything from or whatever, had they not done magic cards. And then
Mhm.
what surprised me is when I go look up their social stuff or I look on their private websites or whatever, there's tons of people going like, oh, well, now I need to pick up some magic cards, or I need to learn this game or whatever. I didn't realize you were doing artwork for this, or I've never heard, magically, some people still haven't heard of the game, right? And that's, I believe, where even some of those extra sales and stuff are coming from. So, for as much as, and to a large extent, I'm kind of like Elba in the sense that, yeah, I kind of like the way it was, and it was kind of simple, and I was cool with it. But I also can look around and say, like, they don't get to $1 billion in sales keeping me and Elba happy. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is, right? Like, they have to reach out to those other people and bring those other audiences in and those other markets. And I always tell people, like, it's one of those things we can look back and say we don't like something, and it may not be for me, and it may not be for Elba, but when your sales go up 15, 20, 30% over the last year, it meant something to somebody. You know what I mean? And one of the things I think helps Magic as well is that the average age of the player for Magic is older than a lot of other games, both digital and paper games. So they can get away with more as more people want to collect things, or you do introduce an artist or even a card style, because there's still adults I see that out here that are trying to collect every single masterpiece. Or hell, for me, I have a small stack of stuff over here from the etched foils from New Capenna, right? That I don't normally collect weird versions of stuff, but because you did this one and I kind of liked it, I'm like, well, maybe I'll slowly collect these. So it's reaching out to a larger, broader audience. And I think maybe over time, that's just one of the things we kind of had to accept, is that even though guys, I guess, have been around forever and we've spent a lot of money, Magic is trying to appeal to tens of millions of players now. And there's so many different wants and needs that I think, a couple of years ago when Blake came out and said, well, not every product's for everybody. I think people took that the wrong way of him saying, like, well, then just don't buy our stuff, right? But it wasn't really that. It's that, if I play Legacy, then the latest standard set maybe doesn't mean much to me, right?
Right.
But if I play Commander, okay, I want the Commander decks, but I don't really care about this other thing. Or when Modern Horizons 2 comes out and I play mostly Standard, I probably don't really care what's much in this product, right? Like, so it's trying to find different things for everybody and then have variations within those, so your collectors still have things or whatever. And that's kind of to Elba's point, that you still need valuable cards, right? Because you don't get a story in Forbes unless you have, somebody who bought a grade 10 Lotus for whatever it was, $600,000 or whatever the crazy number was, right? So you get things like that recent ink card we had, right, with the purple ink or whatever it was, that was worth like $1,500 or something right out of a booth.
I never did. Anybody find one of those? Like,
there's definitely been some that have been open, so they're out there.
Like, it was so disappointing.
So people can talk about them, though, right? You still have to have those pieces.
Maybe linking back maybe to the original argument we were having before, is like, maybe nowadays Magic is changing in the sense of, like, it's no more the expensive card game which you can get like $1,000 cards, but now it's maybe this piece of, like, every single artist can be in, and there's like an art piece and a set for everybody. Maybe that's where the game is shifting.
There has been talk about that. There has been talk about it becoming a collectible thing rather than a game. That there's going to be a whole version of people that just collect the cards to have them versus the people who play them. Whereas, I mean, I'm a player, but I also do have a hard time not getting the really cool
sure. But, I know D&D players, they got interested because some of their favorite things were in Forgotten Realms. Even though as Magic players, Forgotten Realms was not a great set. But, for the D&D players, getting to see all their favorite characters and favorite spells was like a big deal. Or honestly, have you seen the reaction to the 40K stuff? Like, people are over the moon about that. Like, even
I wish I knew.
And right? that's something that I've been saying again and again about the Universes Beyond stuff. Adventures in the Forgotten Realms could have been a set of 260 different planes, and every Magic player could have hated it, and the D&D players would still jump at it. Same thing for Warhammer, and same thing for Lord of the Rings. That's coming up. I
or
know
Doctor
more
Who.
than
I'm
one.
sure people are going to love that.
I'm excited.
I know more than one D&D player who does not play Magic on principle. They do not want to play Magic. They do not enjoy Magic. They think that Magic it takes time away from their beloved D&D. That went and got a full set of Attention Forgotten Realms in foil because it's D&D. Yeah.
Was Forgotten Realms? You really didn't like it, DeQuan? I kind of liked it. I had fun with it. Maybe it's because I'm a simpleton when it comes to drafting, and so like whenever it's like a slightly more simple set, like Kamigawa, I was like, oh.
No, I don't think it was just a complexity thing. I think in general, and I kind of understand if you're in R&D's shoes. I think they made it underpowered significantly. And I think for two reasons. One, to kind of bring us back a little bit from, we were, like you're saying, we're still reeling from stuff that happened like 2 years ago.
Drainage.
Yeah, let's bring down the power level a little bit. But I also think they kind of, I don't know, maybe underestimated the enthusiasm of the D&D community and wanted it to be an easy on-ramp. So if somebody was looking at D&D stuff and go, oh, well, I'll try Magic out because I can play with these funny spells I like to cast and this type of character, or whatever, this planeswalker. But then you got like Mordenkainen, who's this big character in the D&D world who I think I saw that card cast like 5 times on Arena.
I don't think I have. Wow.
Or the Tarrasque, right? Or the Tarrasque.
Yeah, exactly. Tarrasque was one everybody.
Oh, the Tarrasque. Oh, that's bad. That was bad.
But that's what I'm saying. I think they downplayed it a little bit and didn't really just go for it like they could have. And I think they did that a little bit more in the next set, but unfortunately that was like a commander specific set or whatever, and we really didn't get to play with it in standard.
My heart breaks for Crimson Vow. That's the sacrifice that happened to Crimson Vow. It was going to be so beautiful. I will never get over it. It was going to be so beautiful.
People were talking of like it's because like I think ever since Kamigawa, right, and now with Unfinity, like Magic is really like not. I mean, of course, was like rifles and guns and the Wars of Time. So like Magic is not just a medieval fantasy game, quote unquote. But with Kamigawa, we're like, and now with Unfinity, we're kind of getting used to see technology in some of the cards, right? As like laser guns and all of that.
And people are so upset about Unfinity, and I feel for you, Greg, because we were on Facebook the other day, and somebody was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and I'm like, come on, man, like, why do you have to say that? Like,
he's probably gonna buy at least one booster and get some of those cards.
Exactly.
Whoever that guy is.
Here's the thing. I got in trouble one day.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Elba. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say the worst thing about Infinity, if you're gonna poop on Infinity Parade, the issues being released at the same time as Warhammer, and what it feels like 1 week from Dominaria. But
yeah, there was, and that had to do with, I think, like manufacturing, probably, right? Or because of COVID stuff.
So there is a reason, and I gotta just a little tangent, and this touches back on what DeQuan was saying about finding out new artists. I was going to ask Greg about. He said how he got how Wizards reached out to him, and I was going to ask, but however did they ever find your art? And then I just happened to Google his name, and I see the man has made art for Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Call of Cthulhu, Arkham Horror,
Hammer,
it's Elder Sign, and about every single game I don't play.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so DeQuan, you hit the nail on the head. The new artist comes on, and the old geezers at what they've done professionally before.
I had the really same reaction when I met guys. Like, Greg, let's see. Oh shit, he got some more. Oh Christ.
Greg, here's a real question though. Like, have you started to? And I know it's still in previews, and we haven't seen the rest of your cards yet. But has that drawn extra traffic to your stuff? Like just people saying like, hey, who's this artist? And then maybe going to start and look and see maybe how to acquire pieces or whatever.
Well, I can't really say for now because it's just been a few days. But I already had some strange people that I really don't know, like wanting to befriend me on Facebook.
So there you go. Like so even with just one preview card being out there, it's already starting the extra traffic for the artist. So like
strange
there is an
impact
impact
to
to
this.
this.
There's a difference.
Probably both, I'd say.
Well, yeah. I gotta be honest. Alper, I still can't forgive you for having the Jinky Texas. I wanted that on my wall.
Well-
I really like that Jinky Texas. I really like that Jinky Texas.
Oh my gosh, I love my Jin. I can't show it off now because it is hanging on my wall. But like this, okay. Greg is so talented. I can't get over this, and I will put this up. He had not done oil like prior to the original that's behind me is digital, and so I said to him, well, you got to do a repaint of it, you know. And he's like, well, I haven't really done oil. So he did this one. He did a repaint of it. It was amazing. And then I said, okay, let's play Funzy art director. And I was like, okay, you're going to do a Praetor. So you're going to do Jin Gitaxis. And that was just it. I said, here's what he looks like. And you just give me your version of it. This thing was so badass that I had to buy it myself. I was like, it is gorgeous. And I don't want to say anything specific, but I will say maybe somebody noticed it and talk to him about stuff. Let's not, you know, I don't want to
maybe
I don't want to give anything away, but you know, the right eyeballs may have glazed.
Despite the first piece, I might be saying this wrong. The first piece that Greg did for like magic related might be the Jinky Texas, right? It is fun to see him in the new set because that means like he could do the Jinky Texas, which is like the dark stuff. And he can also do the set, which is the cool stuff, which means we can have him everywhere in between. Greg, you're gonna be ready for magic.
I've seen Magali Villeneuve complaining that people complain to her that she only draws very beautiful people, very beautiful women, very flowy, and she responds saying, "That's what they pay me to draw. I'd love to draw that's monster drooling blood or whatever."
I mean, by the way, she did the dragon for the D&D cover.
Oh yeah,
the dragon.
Remember when she was like, "Oh, that was hard for her."
They made me do a dragon.
Yeah,
why did you give me that?
Right? Let's be honest.
If you're not that often that you can really choose the subjects.
Yeah, exactly. And let us be honest, right? If you have the money to commission Magali Villeneuve, you're not gonna go at her and say, draw an ugly woman or draw an ugly guy. No, right? You're gonna make
well,
sure
that's
like,
the thing, right?
Magali,
if you're gonna go find an artist, a lot of times they've already identified your art style.
Yeah.
Right. And then say, okay, we have this idea for a project, or we want to do this secret layer, we want to do this thing, or you know, in Greg's case, like, okay, we have this weird world we're doing for Unfinity, and we think your artwork fits this. Like, would you want to do a couple of pieces for us, right? So, and they already and I'm sure Greg can attest to this, but like the art directors already have a whole world guide by the time they come to you. Like the people look this way, this is where they live, this is the terrain, this is what the sun cycle is, this is what would make sense for people's skin tone to be, like all of that's already mapped out before you even go to the artist anyway. So to put all of that on the artist is a little bit unfair because they still have to do artwork within the confines of whatever that set or those characters are supposed to look like.
And yeah, I mean, and frankly, anybody bitching about Magali doing artwork I'd be like, okay, well, you clearly don't understand what good artwork is. I mean, like, if that's a problem, if Magali creates something and you're like, meh,
if something being good is a problem, just like, what can we do? I guess the game sucks.
I dare say anyone bitching at the artist doing art.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
Gotta have a few screws loose, buddy. You don't understand what's going on here.
I mean, and Greg, you have to admit, do you get a little excited because I saw Magali posted when you debuted? You know, it's exciting whenever she posts. Whenever she likes one of my tweets, I'm like,
she just posted a picture of like George R.R. Martin on the latest convention she was going. So it's like, starstruck. We had a little starstruck episode where it was like 9 of us and everyone's just like, Magali just joined in. We're like, Magali.
Oh, it was good times. But to bring it back, it's really exciting what the artwork is doing, and I think that's a key that holds it together. But then, I guess I kind of have to because I have you here, and I like the controversial stuff a little bit. What about the negatives? What are some negatives? I know Elba's like you've got the chambers.
Elba's got some stuff.
But I am curious to see what DeQuan has to say about that that maybe things that you've experienced, because you not just working with Wizards, but you've been heavily involved with your show, and obviously the situations that come up with the lack of representation, that kind of thing. I mean, what are some things that you've noticed that were bothersome to you, that maybe have been addressed or haven't been addressed? What
I think for me it's twofold. One, I do put a little bit on the community, right? I think we try to like turn, we're making mountains out of molehills sometimes, right? It's just like we're saying about the artist thing, right? It's like, why would you even bother an artist about, hey, your art style's been this way for 20 years, all of a sudden I'm going to be mad because this is what it is, right? It's like, what are we even getting upset about, right? And unfortunately, I can even tell you from my time at Wizards, like that comes up where everybody's being upset about everything. So, I would see Chris Cox in the morning and he'd be like, hey, did you see this thing on Reddit that people are saying? And we literally had to tell him, like, don't worry about it. It'll be over in like 24 hours and nobody cared. And then the next day I was like, we good? And he's like, yeah, we're good. I'm like, all right, cool. All right. So you train people to ignore you after a point, because not everything can be this 5-alarm fire. Like, some things are more important than others. So we need to pick and choose what's really an issue that we need to be worrying about versus like, this is a small little thing, whatever. I don't like it, but whatever, we can get over it. Like, don't be so hyperbolic about everything. Just sometimes things can be different. Like we were talking earlier, there's some things me and Elba don't like, but obviously they work for another probably as much as 70% of the community. So great. Right? Like, not everything's for us.
That you learn from playing Commander a lot is threat assessment.
There are people who literally learn Magic through Commander. It's not the best.
That's how I learned.
That's how they learn. That's how they got it. And if I might do a small addendum, right? Maybe that's not a thing that Magic did wrong, but maybe that's the big downside, quote unquote, of Magic, is that the community is so big, it's so wide, it stretches in so many places, right? There's always someone who's gonna be completely upset and just gonna turn at Wizards and point out and say, hey, that sucks, right? And maybe
I
they
have
can be vocal about it.
a real controversial statement on that.
Ooh, controversy.
Please, controversy.
I think Wizards communicates too much, to be honest. I think some companies really do. And I think we've gotten to this world where we expect them to tell us everything and do all this. But then, like, really ask yourself, what good has come from them telling us things? Like, it's just one more thing for us to complain about, or it's one more thing for us to make an argument about.
If one thing, right, the whole Crimson Vow thing maybe was like that, I just said too much.
I don't think Wizards communicates too much. I think Wizards communicates the wrong things.
Oh, their communication's not great, don't get me wrong, but I think there's fewer things they could say and still get the same results.
What would be an example of something where you feel like they maybe just should have let it go, and saying something about it made things worse, or made things more difficult for them?
Crimson Vow?
I don't even know if there's a particular thing. I think it's just the mode of operation, that people complain, because we'll complain that, well, I wish Wizards would have said something about this. And then they're like, okay, we're going to have this announcement coming next Tuesday. And then you see people just making memes about an announcement, right? So it's just like, just do whatever makes sense for business and just do it. But with that, and the part I think they haven't been great at is they need to be able to be more nimble. They need to be able to shift gears easier and sooner and faster, right? Because that's one of the, and I get it, it's big corporate business. I tell people all the time, like, you have to think of businesses like big ships, and you can't just turn right like you do in your car. It's going to a big, long, slow, meandering turn to the right.
Yeah.
Because of the way they're trying to communicate and the products they're putting out at the rate they are, like, you need to be able to shift faster, right? You need to be able to, okay, this is feedback, let's deal with this. And they've gotten a little bit better, because we did have the recent incident with the D&D stuff and the slave ape race or whatever that was. Yeah. And they at least quickly were like, hey, we're taking all this down, we're changing all the digital copies, and that was a matter of a couple of weeks. And that's probably about as fast as you can expect a company to realistically move on something like that and get all those changes done. But we need to have that regularly on more things. I think there's just been a lot of stuff that, even when, you talk about like the racial issue of wanting to take cards off their website and all that stuff, it seemed like that was a topic that just meandered for like 2 months or something during I guess like 2 summers ago or something. It was just like so long that we were talking about it, and it's like,
Right.
just correct it, be done, put out your public statements, let's move on to the next thing, right? Like, because I think the longer you just let things linger, the more it becomes a problem for people. More people can speculate it, and we talk about it on our podcast, and we do all this stuff, and it just becomes even bigger than it needs to be most of the time.
That's that's an interesting point. Like, what if instead of making a big statement about the bannings of the cards, the certain cards that over, I think it was 2019, it was COVID brain,
2020. It was the summer, I think, of 2020,
where there was a big, like big banning of certain cards. Which, look, some of them, yes, they
Sure.
clearly make sense why they should not be there. Some of them did confuse me, and I felt bad because you almost don't want to ask the question to be like, because you don't want to find out that you're ignorant when you have to ask the question, why is this racist? Because then you can find out that you know why. You're like, oh no, I've
But see, that's the community thing where people want to blow things up too big, right? If somebody is being genuine and asking a question of like, well, why is this offensive? I don't really understand. I thought this was just a term or whatever. Like, you should be able to have that conversation. It shouldn't be like, oh, how dare you ask? Or like, I don't know why you don't go to the internet and find the answer or whatever. It's like, it takes me like, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute to type a tweet and respond to you.
that's
Yeah.
so true.
I think like the community of Magic is so diverse, and not everyone is from like US cultural region. And like, for example, Poland, where I'm from, had never been a country that conquered some other countries too much. So we didn't have any colonies or something like that, and a lot of that issues that came from that is like a big unknown for some people here.
Yeah,
That's a good example though, right? If you weren't American, none of it probably made sense. You probably see the naming and the iconology and you just go like, why is this a problem? It looks normal, right? But then when somebody tells you, you finally get it. But you're going to feel weird because you don't even know where to start looking to find the answer if somebody doesn't tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
in the place, and like in the post where it's like maybe the best place of someone asking and then having the response and starting the conversation there, maybe that's the place where people just like blow it off. I think Elba has a lot to say about what was just.
I was going to say, as far as online communities go, maybe I'm wearing rose tinted glasses, but I have the impression that the Magic community is a very calm and well behaved one.
Now,
my other online communities that I linger in are like Dota 2 or Counter-Strike or MMOs. And
oh man, I'll tell you the one that's the worst for me, far and away, was League of Legends. Like their community is the worst.
I don't play League of Legends because I'm in the Dota side, and I've heard many people say, "Oh no, League of Legends is impossible."
League of Legends community is so bad that I've had people entrenched in the League of Legends community say, "Yeah, we know it's bad," and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like they just accept that it's bad.
No, it became its own thing. It's weird how turn up to 12 that goes. It's
crazy. I literally gave up. Matter of fact, that was kind of the last straw for me, going back and trying it again, with just saying like, nope, nothing's changed. They're still terrible. And now I don't even want to play games that even have a chat component in them at all. Like I really just don't. I don't.
Oh wow, that's intense.
Completely off guard. Like a good example of what I've seen from an MMO, Final Fantasy 14.
I've heard that actually.
It's weird how great of a community that has become, and it's like completely off Magic, right? But it's
fine.
It's such a. It literally is like compared to everything else, it is like a shiny beacon. I'd say like compared to the rest, it's amazing. It's amazing.
And I will say to Elba's point, the majority of the community is really positive. Like you will always see people doing charity fundraisers, people doing streams to try to help other people. When something happens in the community, some people are kicking up like GoFundMe's. Like, so there is a lot of camaraderie and a lot of people doing good things, and even a lot of retailers over the years that have become like pillars of the community. So I don't think it's everybody by any stretch. I think, unfortunately, like a lot of the internet, I'm not going to say it's just Magic, that there are a lot of people that have found a way to benefit from negativity. Is probably the best way to put that.
That's
I,
a very nice way.
I
to
can
put
tell
it.
you, and I'm not going to say it on the air, but I have met people who are friends with a couple of major Magic content creators that I know have posted stuff that's incorrect or whatever or bad, but those particular creators have said they don't even care if the community implodes. Like, they know people are going to watch them because they're negative and just spouting stuff and don't care, right? So those people exist out there because they found a way to benefit from it. And it sucks because that mentality or those incorrect statements or whatever do bleed over to other places and cause problems.
That's very selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and see, and I think what I learned from the Brazilian community, because I met Allison, and I've had a chance to interact with I'm sorry, Elba, but you're the biggest MTG guy in Brazil, and just how nice you were. You came on the show. You became a host. You just very, very kind. It was much harder to get American people to interact, and thank you very much, DeQuan, for coming on, because it was a big get. This was a big get, but it's tougher in America to reach people, and I wonder if that has to do with maybe those content creators who do have that selfish thinking. Why would they care about having some, like, bringing up, like, say, a smaller channel or things like that? Like,
I think for a lot of people it's, and I've seen this in other communities too, I think it's just misplaced intentions. I think there's some, like, I don't know, like this fake idea of brand protection or whatever, and like, I'm already big enough, I don't whatever. But my thing is, I really tell people, like, if I have time, I make myself available, right? Because I've only been really being a full-time content creator for about 2.5 years or so.
hey, you blew up. I saw how.
So I'm still fairly new. So it's not like I'm that far removed from being some of these smaller creators, right? So if I can give somebody else the time and help them out or whatever, then great. Like, it's not going to kill me to do that. And maybe they pass that on to the next person or whatever. But even within that, some part of your community may not even know who I am, right? So there's still some exposure there for me as well. It doesn't matter that if your videos get 5,000 views or 500 views, there's probably some percentage that still don't know me. So there's still some benefit there as well. But I don't see anything wrong with reaching out and working with people and, just trying to help other people be better. Like, I'm a big believer that if we're all making better content, then that's going to create more fans and more people that are interested or whatever, because just the way social media works, stuff's going to get shoved in front of people, and the more positive pieces there are, the better we all are going to be. I'm more bothered when I see people, like I'm saying, the bad actors, whether they're small or big or whatever, putting out that other content, because that does more harm to the community and makes our jobs harder.
I mean, I remember playing when I first started, and I guess I forget the name of the channel because it's been so long since I repressed it, but he was so happy and so Canadian, and just if maybe that's a hint.
I love so Canadian as a descriptor.
So Canadian.
It's an adjective. It's just like Canadian.
And then in private, when I joined, like, the group chat, and I was told that I was because I thought that it was cool that they made Ral Zarek gay, because it's, why not? A little representation doesn't hurt. And I just got torn a new asshole that I was a complete moron, and that I should not be accepting of just some sort of, like, story being wedged in, and I have no understanding of the gay experience. And I was like, yeah.
Okay. Do you tell them?
I was like, that's interesting. Thank you for letting me know that I was incorrect about my opinions of who I was. But it was really disappointing. And that's sort of like that kind of thing, I guess, that can really, a more sensitive person, or a person who, like, that could turn them off for it for good. But I wonder why certain games like Final Fantasy go really positive, and then, like, other ones like League of Legends go really negative. Probably in 20 years there's going to be
honestly, I think it's a lot of times it's just hive mind mentality, and whoever's first to the post. If your biggest presenters of the game or your biggest creators or whatever are pushing that mentality, then that's just going to bleed off to other people, right? Wherever people start seeing that be the successful model, or people to see that person getting a crowd or an audience, it becomes normal, right? It's the same reason I tell people, and like my whole community, matter of fact, we talked about this on my podcast, which is going to go live probably tomorrow, but we were talking about how I don't try to get every single viewer, every single listener on the internet, right? I want a very particular one. I want certain people of a certain mentality that care about boosting the community, that want to help each other out. And because of that, I've still grown at a steady rate. I don't have to boot people from my Discord every week. You know, my streams are clean. Like, I don't have any problems. And it's because of how I've cultivated stuff. And if stuff pops up, me and my moderators, whatever, we just cut it off. There's no discussion. There's no whatever. Like, you come in with like racial slurs, whatever, boom, you're gone. Like, that's it. End of discussion. And people who come in realize that, okay, I can't be like this, right? This isn't accepted or whatever. So, but if you allow a couple of them to go through because you don't want to be the bad guy or whatever, well, then the next person goes, oh, well, this person could say this type of edgy stuff, then I'm going to say it. And then before you know it, you've got 30, 40, 50 people doing it. And now it becomes the norm.
Yeah. And then it becomes that toxic
can,
garbage.
You can tolerate intolerance, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to harp on with DeQuan here. I do believe, Alper, that the difference between communities has to do with just what DeQuan said down here. I'm one of the oldest channels in Brazil, and when I started, there were like 4 of us, and all 4 YouTubers were really positive and upbringing and wanted to bring new people, and were very welcoming. And that's how MTG content started in Brazil. Now, 7 years later, every now and then pops up someone trying to stir up the pot and trying to make controversy and coming up with crazy offensive conspiracy theories, and they usually just die off before the channel ever reaches 1,000 subscribers, because that's just not how the community grew. By sheer luck, we started being positive about this and having a positive attitude and outlook. So that's the message that got sent to people.
That is amazing. Yeah,
I'll say this too. When you look at like the general field of, say, like YouTube, look at what's happened since Mr. Beast started blowing up like 3 years ago.
It's true. It's true.
Right now you have a bunch of people going, oh, well, I'm going to go give money away, or I'm going to do this cool charity thing, or I'm going to go help like plant trees, or whatever, because they've now seen somebody have a lot of success. That, and honestly, I hope we never find anything negative out about Jimmy. Because,
I know. I would be so bummed.
So genuinely nice all the
like,
time.
That
Every
would
interview,
suck.
whatever. And I'm like, if I find out he did anything terrible to a person, or he
I
molested
know.
somebody or whatever, I'm gonna probably cry myself to sleep.
That's
So,
the
like,
worst. It's like when somebody's awesome, you're like, oh, please don't have skeletons.
Exactly.
What
But seriously though, he's that
something?
example though, right? People see him getting 10, 20, 30 million views on a video, and then they start going, oh, well, maybe I should emulate that behavior. Even though the internet's known for being negative and people putting out all these edgy, controversial videos, you're now starting to see him, and like Ryan Trahan, I think, right? He's doing fun videos, traveling the country, talking about his religion and all this other stuff, right? But it's opening up the doors for people to go like, oh, well, maybe this is a way we could be successful. Maybe this is what people really want, right?
That is such an interesting point, because when I started playing Magic, it was right at the War of the Spark had a week to go, and then it was Modern Horizons. And what was happening in the Magic the Gathering like YouTube like scene was a lot of negative people like that were really big. Like I sort of I shouldn't name names, Desolator Magic. I was sort of given like sort of like my algorithm was to that, and I was under the impression of, oh, like these are just very angry people that like to call people stupid, and you sort of get this impression that there are, you know, these like sort of QAnonish, if you will, you know, groupthink schmucks, to put it nicely. But now that there has been a shift in YouTube, I think all of YouTube were sort of like a little like bitter and nasty for like a while. The pandemic made people, I think you couldn't be like really nasty about it because everybody was pretty like drained. Like people wanted lightness.
The real world was very tiresome during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think to some level, and I got to experience a lot of this because basically my whole content career has basically been during the pandemic for the most part.
That's astonishing, though.
Yeah, well, I have some things I could say on that on a whole different podcast, but there was a plan and a purpose to how it happened, honestly. But I think in that you got a lot of the positive creators starting to push each other. You know, you saw Professor starting to bring people onto his channel for interviews and conversations, right? You started seeing CGB invite people onto his streams to talk about deck lists or their community or whatever. And the positive started to spread to more positive sides. So now if you wanted to do a break into the community, it's like, okay, well, if I don't fit this mold of this positivity, it's going to be a lot harder. Not saying you can't do it, because we still see people doing it, but the journey becomes way more difficult if there's this big positive barrier of everybody trying to lift each other up.
Yeah, it's true. It is true, and but I mean, and astonishing, I say also too, because in your journey, and we have to throw this in there. I mean, you got involved with the rules committee. I mean, that is so cool that you are, you know, like you're like one of the anointed. Is that like? Is
I mean, I don't know about anointed.
Did they
People aren't
knight
gonna
you?
line up
I
for miles
will-
when I die like the queen, you know. I mean, like,
Well,
Did they
Well,
knight
what-
you? Did they put a small sword or a commander?
What do you mean when the commander rules when you guys die? There's not going to be a tour of the cat with caskets. I mean, I figured
Made
that.
of magic cards.
I'd be
around
lucky
or
if a
something?
celebrity sang a song about me. You know what I mean? Like that'd be about as much.
That would look. I mean, but still, it is really cool. It's a cool thing. It's something that, like, when you started playing Magic, I mean, was that part of your plan? I mean, did you have that, like, Eye of the Tiger for that, or did that just? How did
Well,
that?
when I started
come
playing
out?
Magic, Commander didn't exist.
Well, yeah, but so
Like,
there you go. So
Commander wasn't a thing till what, like
2013
2011 or something like that,
Yeah.
2010, something like that. So
But
it's been
still.
a while.
But how did that happen, though? I mean, was that something you planned out?
No, not at all. Honestly, none of my adult life has been planned out. Like I was just telling somebody yesterday in one of my Discord groups that if somebody had told 15-year-old me that this is what like 40-year-old me was going to get to do, like I think it was a pipe dream, honestly.
Wow.
Like my whole life. I mean, I've gotten to make games, I've gotten to sell games, I've run conventions, I've started programs, I'm considered somebody important in the retail community for gaming or whatever, right? Which is where I've got trophies and
Yeah, but
on my wall, right?
You mean to tell me that you Forrest Gumped your way into the Commander Rules Committee? I mean, like, it's
basically no. Honestly, the way that happened is I've known Sheldon for a long time. Like Sheldon was the head judge for my first Grand Prix, whatever that was, like 2000 or something, like forever ago. So we've known each other and we've kind of kept in touch. We've hung out at different like Gen Con and stuff like that. And the thing about the advisory group is they've been trying to slowly, other than just diversify backgrounds, but diversify like histories and, you know, parts of the community and whatever. And though I play Commander, I don't do like full Commander content. For me, Commander is my totally casual time. Like I'll get on and play on people's channels or whatever. But side note, if you ever want to book me on a show or something, I'd rather talk about Magic or do other things other than just play Magic, right? I get that a lot where people are like, you should come on my channel, we should play more Magic. I'm like, what good is that for me or your community, right? Like we're not going to get to show our expertise or our brilliance or whatever. We're just going to be playing more cards. So yeah, anyway, but no, with that, you know, I have the financial background. I have also run a retail store. And I'm still in touch with that community. I'm still one of the heads of one of the biggest communities for retailers. I'm still doing content, so I'm in touch with that part of the community. So having those perspectives and things when I go out to, say, a Command Fest to look at stuff and see how it affects things or see what we're hearing from retailers or whatever is still important when we're trying to make a decision or two with the Commander Advisory Group. So between that and, like I said, having a total casual approach to it, I'm bringing a couple of different perspectives than they had at the time.
Right. I mean, and what really it is, what's amazing about you is that, because I remember seeing you a few years ago and I was like, that guy is like, he's going to be something, he's shooting up. And I was correct. So really what this does is it just affirms that I am amazing, because I truly...
Eye for talent, my friend.
like, what it really boils down to is it's all about
to be
me.
honest, right? Yeah, that and Greg. To be honest, right, with Greg, yeah, I think it's an argument.
I mean,
that
why be great when you can surround yourself with greatness?
I mean, you brought Elba on your show. You identified how it's going to grow. You got
I
Greg
did.
some artwork jobs. I mean, you know,
I did.
I'm just saying.
I'm thank Magic the Gathering can thank me later. I do this. I'm an altruist. Really.
We have to start
Let's
calling
save
you
that for the
Kingmaker.
100. Let's save that for the 100 years anniversary.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
the
and
100 years one. That's
and Gavin,
the other half.
I know Gavin's out there listening, and I wish he would take back what he said about Edgar Markov because that breaks my heart. He said that his biggest regret was Edgar Markov, and that is just like it breaks my.
If you're
the
talking as a
first-
card design, I don't really hate him for that. That kind of makes sense.
I mean, but Edgar is he's my special.
I mean, that and Derevi are both kind of problematic. It's from a
Ready
design
the scrap
standpoint.
savant.
Yeah, the one where you
Yeah.
can just pay the 4 and put it into play or
yeah.
whatever it is. Like, yeah.
The Ready, it's one of the
Bird.
Oh,
Yeah,
Derevi. Okay, I got you.
The yeah, I think it's the Revi.
But without Edgar, what vampires? We don't have anything. We don't have anything. We have nothing.
Dude, nowadays you do. Nowadays you do. The
There's-
Edgar was
there's
just like the
choices for
first
sure.
one and just took over.
Come on, Alper. You got the entirety of Crimson Vow. Of
Uh-huh,
Vampires.
yeah.
Of course, it's going to be.
No, honestly,
your-
the
your
original
tribe is
Olivia,
well
the
supplied.
original Olivia is still pretty good to be able. to
Olivia,
just, like,
the
steal
original
creatures
Olivia
and stuff.
Valdarin
Yeah,
she's powerful.
Yeah, she is.
She's
But
pretty
I
cool.
will. But you mean to tell me that you know like the Viagra version of Edgar is? I mean, come on. Like,
Yeah, but you just don't use that one. You have plenty other legendary vampires to pick from.
I know, but it's so sad. What do they do to my boy? It's just like,
They nerf him. They nerf him.
he was so nerfed, and then Olivia was so. And I do find it interesting. I'm just like, if you switched around the like, say if Olivia was a man and Edgar was a woman, and Olivia came in or we'll call him Oliver came in and drugged Edgarina and coerced her into marriage. Would that be okay? I mean, like, she
Here's
doped
the
him up.
thing. I don't think it would be terrible from a fantasy story perspective.
Mhm.
However, I think writing that story, and I guess at the time they would have wrote it, would have been like 2020 with the
Mhm.
climate of the world. Probably not the best
Yeah.
story to put out, honestly. It would
Like-
have been a bad look.
I mean, Olivia Valdarin's. I mean, she is a monster. She's evil. I mean, it works for her because she's a sinister, crazy thing. But she's, she kind of used vampire, like roofies. I mean,
Yeah, but her whole goal is to be manipulative.
Mhm.
Like, we
I mean,
know
it works
that's
for her.
something-
It works for her.
That's something
They
that
are
I'm really
vampire
looking forward.
girl.
Oh, sorry.
was
That's
it?
something I'm really looking forward to in Brothers War, because if there's one story that could bear being rewritten,
Mm.
is the Brothers War.
Yeah.
like Urza winning his wife in a contest, and
What?
the
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Urza's supposed to be awful in every way, too.
Yep.
He won her in a contest?
Mishra is just a villain because he got Phyrexionized. And you know what's worse, Alper? He won that because the robot basically made a robot that carry a big boulder, right? Walk a boulder around or something. And then he just did that because his father had a magic book that Urza wanted. And that's why, and he happens to get a wife along the way.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's-
the Brothers War story is very 1990s. Very
I'm
1990s
just gonna say
nerd culture.
every single time, Ashnod,
Yeah.
just Ashnod.
Yeah, Ashnod.
I hope those old cards won't be one day, cleared out of the canon because they are not into the current mood or setting of skill.
The problem is not even the cars, just like the background, the whole
See,
thing.
It's so hard there's so much information. It's tough for me as a new player because I'm blown away that Allison, you're celebrating your 5th birthday next week. You're going to be starting kindergarten. Allison he wasn't even born in '94. You were born in what, 2000?
No, I was not.
I mean, so like he was.
As for October 11th, I shall be a 23 fully grown year old.
Oh gosh, I'm old,
So
but
that's
I
what
mean,
he said. Kindergarten next year, right? Cool.
yes, exactly. So, but it's like
underestimate my power, I shall outlive you.
you will outlive me. You're
Married. Whoop.
Whatever.
I'm going to outlive you. I mean, okay, but how I almost wish there was like a compendium and be like the most shocking things that Magic that you would not believe. But I feel like that would be like a muck rat. I don't know, like
Gossip magazine.
I thought about
Magic
doing that
Gossip
YouTube
magazine.
video.
Well, you know what? I would watch it. I would watch it. Hey, you and Alba could get together and do like a greatest hits of the greatest misses of hits of.
Yeah, why not? Elba, let's
Oh,
do it.
that could work out.
I mean,
Gossip magazine. Let's go.
well, I need a compendium of stuff to go. What the hell?
But you know, this is kind of what you're hitting on is another thing that's difficult for Wizards to deal with, right? Like,
right.
As people in general, we don't have things that have a continual 30 years of canon.
Right.
Even
right.
Star Wars has gaps. You know what I mean? Like it's been around for what 40 years or whatever now, but like
yeah, exactly.
But still, like you don't get something 4, 5, 6 times a year updating the story for Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Even when you were getting the novels, it might be one a year or whatever.
Right.
Like, the thing for Magic is we're getting a story point and character changes and whatever like every 4 months, every 3 months, you know, and for 30 years, like think about that. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of writers. That's a lot of different people that have worked there, a bunch of different artists. Like that's a lot to consume, keep track of. And even for them, as far as writing, I'm sure, you know, people that have been there 15 and 20 years look back and go, man, I really wish we could redo this. Or I wish we hadn't said this with this character because we need to be able to use them this way or whatever. Mm-hmm. So from a canon standpoint, I'm a little forgiving on like, okay, if we have to like just force feed something to change a narrative on a thing, I kind of get it, right? Because
yeah.
Anything else you're a fan of outside of maybe like a sports team that's been around forever, I can't like our favorite TV shows or other books or novels or whatever, like very few things have lived that long and gotten that much information. I mean, I guess if you're like a fan of pro wrestling, WWE Raw has been on for like 25 years or something in a row and they do a weekly show. Like, but it's a pretty, I guess if you're in the US, like Law and Order, maybe they've been on for 25 years.
Yeah, but those episodes have nothing. I mean, they barely have anything to do with each other on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's such a small list of things that have that much continuous content.
I mean, Halloween did it. Like, they just straight up said, okay, you know, all those movies that were before this, they didn't happen. And so, like, I mean, and people accepted it. But, you know, I think it would be interesting, not because I want to see the you know where they failed, but it's a fascinating thing. It's a fascinating thing from just a historical standpoint, because like you were saying, if we don't talk about the things that were considered you know, wrong, then we won't be able to course correct it. And it
wasn't even just that. I was thinking.
Here's the thing.
Oh,
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, go for it.
But here's the thing. In I know it's been a while. But in 1996, they did exactly this. They came out and said, hey, guys, okay, the lore is a mess. We sold the rights, the comic rights to too many people, the book rights to too many people. The lore is a mess, and we're going to reboot the whole thing, okay? So whatever comes out now, anything that happened until now, we might go back and redo it. And if we don't touch on that, you know what? Keep it going, but we might touch back on that. And that's why I think there wasn't well, not going to say everyone, but that's why I'm fine with 2019, for example, Magic 2019. The whole point of the story was how Nicol Bolas and his brothers and how they came up, and that goes completely against what the story was. If I agree with DeQuan, it has been a long story, and sensibilities change, opinions change, the public perception changes. I think what hurts the most is just being ignored. They just did Magic Origins, and the idea of Magic Origins was rebooted. Nissa was completely rebooted in Magic. Nissa Revani was pretty much a forest Nazi before Magic Origins.
Yeah.
If you didn't care about Zendikar and the elves, she don't have nothing to do with you.
Oh yeah, exactly. So they have a perfect spot to do. You know what, guys? We're gonna reboot it here. And yeah, sure, comics done it. Marvel has done it. DC has done it. They could have done it. What really pains me is just they saying, "Oh no, we're preserving history." We're to go back to my point for Dominaria 2018, for example. Oh no, we're going to make the story going back to the famous plane of Dominaria where all these big events happened, and we're going to show what happened to it.
How to win a wife.
and then they completely ignored everything that has ever happened to it. They ignored the personality of the characters. They ignored the obvious result of wars. They just ignored everything and just
now thinking about it, it's like it seems like Magic going to other planes and doing like local episodic stories in there seems like just a way to like, okay, let's not look at Dominaria, because if you guys look at Dominaria, it's gonna be like too huge or something, you know, like, oh, here like new Kamigawa, okay, 2 blocks of history you have learned, or like Eldraine, right? It's its own thing. You start learning again, right? It's not like, because if you go at Dominaria, it's like it's been like what, at least like, if you minimize it, there's like what, at least 7 major events or something that happened there.
Yeah,
it's like if you get a new
Dominaria is like Smallville, you know?
It's like Smallville, exactly.
Someone gets murdered every single week.
Exactly.
And it's a major event. So it makes sense from a story's point of view.
And it feels kind of paradoxical because like with the Gatewatch and all that, it seems like they're just trying to do that again, but now weaving in the many stories in between is like, it seems like they're just coming back to like, okay, they're probably going to have another Dominaria, but way more complex because it's a shit ton of planes.
I think that the Gatewatch 2.0 is a little cool, right? I'm just saying the new cast of characters, we got the Elspeth, we got... You know, we got.
Oh no, it's not that. It's just.
It's a lot of girl power going on there. They're the Spice Girls
of how we can do a true new Gatewatch.
Okay.
And it starts with Jace being the big bad that we have to take down.
I would love that.
And here's the idea, right? Because when we go through the stories, there's been at least 3 times that he's done something to his own brain to like forget something or hide a secret or whatever, right? Eventually that messes with you, right? Or maybe he touches the wrong part, or just something goes wrong, or he casts a spell that has repercussions or whatever, and he slowly starts going crazy, right? Now the rest of the team has to go after him and take him down. Maybe somebody else dies in the process. I don't know. But that opens the door for us to have new characters be the new Gatewatch if we wanted to, right? And
I love the way you phrased that when you were just like, he just done something to his brain. That was so funny. But
it's true though.
It's true. It's true.
The last time he did it, I think, was with Vraska, right? So
he
wouldn't remember that she was a bad guy or whatever.
And he played chess with Emrakul, and you know.
And there was a time he tried to dominate Nico Bolas, and Bolas just
Yeah. Well, you know what happened to him in the comic book series, guys. I mean, I know it's spoilers, but do you want to know? Like, he died.
Sure.
He was killed. Jace be dead in the alternate storyline, which was...
I'm not that mad about it.
Well, yeah. But he did have a nice reunion with Vraska, which was nice. Like, you know, like, it was nice to see him, you know, like, I could have seen more of them. Like,
Old man yelling at clouds again. But Urtai turning his back on Weatherlight and becoming a traitor and becoming Krovax and Urtai becoming the bad guys was chilling. The Weatherlight team, Gerhard and Urza and everyone else dying, killing themselves to kill Yawgmoth, that also was shocking. So
I'm just saying,
I'm with the quality. It would be pretty freaking awesome.
Look how sad people got just finding out that like Gideon died and like Ajani got infected or whatever. Like
poor Ajani, he got done raw.
I'm just saying, imagine how like the reaction if it turned out that like all this stuff going on behind the scenes was Jace. And then now he's the bad
Jace
guy,
is the new father of machines.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like how crazy would that be, right?
That would be fucking. That would be devastating. That would be.
Good devastating.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the type of story that like whether you like Jace or hate him, now you're into it, right?
Yeah, now you're gonna stop and read the story.
Yeah, I can run that for 4 years telling that story till they finally, you know, have your big climactic battle with the big bad or whatever. And
I cannot argue with that.
That to me is better than the stuff we did with Nicol Bolas.
Cannot argue with that one. Cannot argue with it.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Can you draw an evil Jace for us? I want that.
Are you going to commission it? We'll commission it. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later.
I want that.
We can talk about commissioning him, you know, later, but you gotta go through the agent, of course, you know, like all this stuff.
Don't worry, but I just want to like add my little point of view on Evil Jace character. I think it's like a very classical theme where there are actual no heroes, and it's a common twist where everyone good is essentially from time to time used as a bad character. Netflix uses it like on every single season of whatever show you watch, and I think it's the point of magic, and it's all the planes. Planes for me especially are like backgrounds in a theater. So you just jump from one scene to another, and it's just they can use them to place those characters that are set in this story to in different roles actually. So one character can be used as a good character and another as a villain, and it's interchangeable, and like they have this ability to play with that form, and it's that old actually.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that they
the
did.
whole thing of you die a hero, or you live long enough to be the villain.
I think that. Well, I will say that I think if for me a crowning achievement, I think of like a character that is fully developed who really just I think is the winner is Liliana. Liliana is just she hits every mark. Like she is complex, she's flawed, she made mistakes, she did bad things, but not for reasons that she meant to. Like she was a catalyst for bad things happening, and she had an arc that was believable. That now that she is like you're on her side. You're on her side. I feel like she is. Wizards can be proud of her, and I think I would be devastated with every new set that comes out. I'm worried because her story is just so perfect now.
You know what though? She got a big benefit from Gideon.
Oh, big time.
Yes.
We're like, I don't think we really, as a community, cared about Gideon all that much, but like Gideon being the like good guy to the end. Sacrificing himself and then kind of leaving Liliana with that like guilt complex.
Yeah, she's haunted.
Like that was a huge point for that character.
And that's, I mean, and Gideon, he would feel bad about it. He'd be like, "Oh, I didn't mean to haunt you. I'm sorry." You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly it, right? If she encounters him later, that would be the thing of just like.
I mean, there's that wonderful painting of her from I think it's 2020. It was Liliana, where she's standing in a graveyard. It's the first time we see Liliana in daylight. And I think it's like I don't remember seeing her in daylight, and you can tell that she's in her grieving outfit, and you can tell that she's crying over Gideon. Like
in theory, there's the Amonkhet card, but like she's
but that's
it's not metaphorical daylight.
Yeah, she's getting fanned by mummies. She's at her all the time, you know. Queen bitchiness. Yeah, like which also fabulous too. You know, gay community loves that kind of stuff. I mean, she is an icon of the gay community, and how could she not be? I mean, she's fabulous.
Talking about Gideon sacrificing himself, I don't know if the three non-Brazilian in this call know this, but here in Brazil, many people have taken the art of Heartwarming Redemption, the card that shows Gideon in the afterlife meeting his buddies, and they've written Easter messages or Christmas messages on it and sent to their very Catholic mothers and aunties and grandmothers,
as if Gideon was Jesus Christ.
Well, Howard Lyon is a very.
Is that real?
And that's
real.
Works.
That's real.
100. I have never once seen a grandmama or an auntie not realizing that's not Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too funny.
You know that thing on Star Wars? They were praying to like Mace Windu. No, not Mace Windu. They were praying to like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something.
Oh yeah, where they pass around and saying like
exactly
Jesus judges you or whatever.
Again,
yeah.
And it's Gideon on Heartwarming.
I hadn't even thought about that till you said it. Like that is amazing.
It's because Howard Lyon is actually a very celebrated religious painter. Like he does do like a lot of like proper, you know, like commissioned the Catholic and Christian
Makes
portraiture. And he slipped in a little bit, but you know, like
it makes sense for the painting. It's the afterlife experience.
No, true. I just think the whole concept is hilarious.
I mean,
it is.
And that's the good kind of religious joke. No one is getting harmed. No one.
Well, that's great.
You just get the heartwarming Christmas message, Easter message, be good to all other people message, and there you go.
Yeah. And I'll say this: like when I was at Wizards, one of the things I had to do is I had to do international calls with the different teams that work with us. the South Americans, Brazilians, always great. Like always brought energy. We're always hyped in discussions, super positive. So like that doesn't surprise me at all that that's a thing that community would do. Not even a little bit.
You guys are great. You know, I mean, we can overlook, you know, the whole Mangala thing. I mean, it's like, you know, like.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like as a Jew, I can say that you are officially forgiven for that. You've made up for it with Magic the Gathering.
Bitch died in a heart attack on the beach. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no. Oh man. Oh, I've gone too far. But does anybody have any like I guess I'll ask do you have anything coming up, DeQuan, that you'd like to promote or talk about or anything like that would be promotion worthy?
Let's see, what have I done? I have some episodes still coming out on Tabletop Jocks. I did some stuff with Joe Johnson, and one of the episodes is already out. We have another one still coming out in the next couple of weeks. We filmed those a couple of months ago, actually, when I flew down to California to do some stuff with him. I'm working on assembling a video of cool, like behind the scenes stuff from Ultra Pro. I got permission from them to go through their warehouse, kind of do like a little bit of a how it's made on sleeves and playmats and stuff like that. A rare thing. To my knowledge, they've never really let anybody go through there, and we just have had a good working relationship, and I thought it was a cool idea and they were into it. So I've been taking my time putting that together, and MTG Nerd Girl's starting another channel for some Commander stuff, and we filmed some things down with her 2 weeks ago, so that should be coming out sometime in the next like month or two. So yeah, I have a lot of, even more, I don't know, I have like notes all over I always tell people, if I die and they tell you I had Alzheimer's, it's a lie. I just write notes on everything. But
it's like,
yeah, I just have a lot of stuff. I tend to stay busy. I like coming up with ideas and projects. You know, one of my long-term goals is to actually get extra people on my channel, kind of like a la MTG Goldfish a little bit, how they have like a crew of people. But for people who want to maybe get into content or do YouTube, and maybe they just, you know, you still have your full-time job and you can't dedicate to it yet. If I could get them to do like one video a month or maybe one every 2 or 3 weeks and showcase them, and people that, you know, maybe do more with the lore since I don't do as much, or maybe somebody who has a certain thing for legacy because I don't feature that on my channel, right? And give them a chance to get it out there so they can build up their brand a little bit if they do decide to do it full time and step off somewhere, and still give them a chance to get paid, because it's hard to get paid when you're starting out, right? So that's a long-term project I'm kind of working on. Hopefully going into next year, I'll find a couple of people I can work with.
Elba.
I might have a couple people for you.
Ooh.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, he's got an arsenal. I mean, and you know, and if you ever need, you know, if you ever need artists to discuss, like, I can help provide artists.
For sure.
You guys thought this was a podcast? This is a business meeting, everyone.
This is networking. This is networking.
If you're in business for yourself, everything is a business meeting.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to tax right off my embarrassment. I really feel so bad, Greg. I'm so sorry. I really, truly, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
I know. I'm in trouble.
I got some new ideas from this. So.
You did? Okay, good. Because I feel just awful. And I'm gonna get you for that, Allison. You set me off, and I got excited. About Jozu. But are you gonna be at Magic 30? Are you going to that, or you're gonna be there?
Yeah, I'll be at Magic 30, and I'm on the Commander Advisory Group presentation on Sunday. We'll be doing one of those on one of the panels. I'll probably be around throughout the weekend doing some stuff. And I won't be at TwitchCon because some people were asking me if I was going to go. I will not be doing that this year.
Oh, well, I'll be in a glitter jumpsuit, so you'll probably see me. But it's like
sweet.
Oh yeah, glitter jumpsuits. I have to wear a glitter jumpsuit. It's important. It's my look. The first time I wore it, it was 30 degrees out in Florida, and I was wearing a glitter jumpsuit, and because I thought it was going to be hot because Florida's hot, I had just a body stocking underneath it to basically cover, you know, like just to keep everything, you know, from
keep proper parts where they need to be.
And that was it. I was basically wearing like nylon in 30-degree weather with with sequins on it. I almost died on the way to the convention center. Like it was pretty brutal. But what about you, Elba? What do you're going to Japan? I know you mentioned that, but do you have anything going on that you would like to shout out?
Phew. Well, the Japan trip is going to be a featured video in the channel as well. But I'm working on a series, visiting every state in Brazil.
Oh, cool.
Yep. I've already also got I might be meta plugging here, but I've got a monthly series of physical legacy gameplay videos, and I just heard of someone who's looking for legacy players. So
I know who said that.
maybe-
It was Yep. It was me. I said it.
It's
But no, that's okay. So you're doing a legacy. See, this would be great. By the way, guys. By the way, guys, I hope you guys make like that like the kind of the I guess called the WTF of Magic history. Like I would,
seriously, I have like some working documents, and that's one of the ones. But it wasn't just going to be just story, but like even like crazy things you've heard about, like tournament situations or lore, or like the Mike Long card drop or whatever, right? Like all those types of things. Because if you're new, that's stuff that happened literally 20 years ago. Like you have no idea, but like could just be fun to know it exists. When you see somebody talking about it on Twitter, you'll know what they're talking about.
Yeah, because
I have a video
tough.
on the pipeline for all the people that started playing Magic during the pandemic and they've only played Arena, and now they're starting to go to in-person events, and they just don't know I don't like calling it scams, but DeQuan, you know what I'm talking about. You know those guys who shuffle just right and forget to ask you to cut their decks. You know that kind of
well, even beyond that, like in the US, we have a term, we call them angle shooters, where
angle shooters.
Where they will not announce a certain trigger or whatever, knowing that it's still going to happen. But like hoping you don't notice, and then they call a judge and be like, "Oh well, I can't skip the trigger. I kind of have to have it be a thing," after they've already seen the action you're going to take. Like those types of people.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
exist.
So I've got a video for new people. Well, I guess they're new. You could have started playing 2 years ago. You know how to play the game. You just don't know how people try to screw each other over on people.
You could tournaments. I could be angle shot and not even know. What angle shooter? What is it? Ankle or angle shooter? What is the
angle?
What does that mean?
A-N-G-L-E.
What does that mean? Where did that come from? The etymology of that?
I think it's from snooker.
I'm not totally sure, to be honest. I would imagine it comes from something to do with gambling, because it's something I've heard even in the poker community.
Ain't that on the dice game? Like you throw it on the angle, and I think it.
No, I would think it's from snooker, because they used to bet on the games, and then I'll bet you $100. Want to bet $100 that I can make this shot? Yeah, sure, that shot is impossible. And then he walks across the table and hits it hard, and the instead of going the straight shot, he shoots in an angle and hits it.
Wow. See, there you go. The more you know. Oh, I hope I don't get sued for that one. Yeah, don't want to get NBC. It might be like, you can't use that. But well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this tonight. It's been a blast. It's always great.
It's been fun.
It's always great. And thank you again, DeQuan, for coming on. You've been
no problem.
Been a treasure trove of information, and thank you, Greg, for joining us, and congratulations on.
Thanks for having.
You are officially now a contemporary of Magali Villeneuve and Anson Maddox. They are your coworkers now. Like that is how do you feel? You feel good?
I feel great.
You should. And well, thank you again, and buenas noches, as they say in Brazil. Just kidding. I don't know how they. How do you say good night in Brazilian? I just don't know.
It's completely different from buenas noches. It's boa noite.
Bye bye.